Hey Healing Family! Today I wanted to go into detail about how we need to reimagine our sense of pacing or scaling or spoon theory as we are on our limbic system healing journey. So when we are working on encouraging neuroplasticity and deeper healing, inevitably along the way, we might have to redefine how we view what we are capable of. And this is a question I get a lot as part of people who are on this healing journey. When do I know how far to push or when to hold back? So it's something I wanted to address today, and there is no hard or fast rule here. But I want to start a little bit by talking about some basic psychology perspectives that might factor into this a little bit. First of all, just finding the motivation to try new things when you begin your healing journey involves understanding this interplay between behavioral activation, motivation psychology, and breaking old habit patterns. Behavioral activation is something we talk about in cognitive behavior therapy. It's a therapeutic approach where we focus on engaging in new activities to improve mood, and then we increase positive reinforcement. When we start a new behavior, it takes a lot of work initially, but then we get this intrinsic motivation because it feels good and it's motivating, and then the next time we have to go back and start the behavior again, we're more motivated to complete it, and it starts to take on a snowball effect or a life of its own to make it easier to keep going. So we want to identify values and goals. What is meaningful or important to you on your healing journey, and align your activities with these values. They already will have more intrinsic motivation for you if you do this, rather than starting with a list of behaviors that someone else is telling you you should do. We're going to create a plan, a structured plan to gradually increase engagement in these activities and begin with small, manageable steps that you can feel confident you can complete. And we're going to put this into our daily or weekly schedule. When we have consistency, it helps us form solid habits, and it takes more of the guesswork out of it. How often do we get so nervous planning something and coming up with when we should do it, and every single time we waste all this energy and anxiety to plan it, and then we no longer want to try it. If we know we have a standing date every Tuesday to try a yoga class, every Wednesday to go to the beach, whatever it might be, it becomes second nature, and it's easier to keep up with in behavioral activation. We also have to understand motivation. Motivation can be intrinsic, which is driven by our internal sense of reward, or extrinsic, which is driven by external reward. We want to boost both types with SMART goals. Are they specific, measurable? Can we achieve them easily? Are they relevant to our healing goals? And do we have a time limit on how we're going to achieve them, how long they take, at what point we want to have this goal done by, for really clear direction and milestones, so we know when we are having success, and that is helping us to feel empowered. We want to celebrate every success, even the small ones, to build positive reinforcement and increase our motivation further. And then we want to use positive visualization. We want to visualize ourselves achieving these goals and practice that within our mind's eye. What does it look like? What does it feel like? What helped me get there? How good does that feel? So then when it actually comes time to get past the rehearsal phase and do the behavior, we mentally are prepared and we're motivated already. And we want to break old habits. So old habits, that neural place where we are stuck in these old pathways and moving towards neuroplasticity, is where brain retraining really shines. We're going to practice mindfulness, visualization, becoming aware of thoughts, emotions, behaviors, what's holding us back, what's pushing us forward, and altering unhelpful patterns and perceptions. We use the positive psychology tools that we've gained through brain retraining to reframe negative or anxious thoughts when they come in. And we modify our environment to reduce triggers and to put in things that help push us along the way. And we want to keep momentum going. So we want to reflect on our progress, adjust our plans, stay accountable, maybe share these goals with friends or healing communities or coaches, and be flexible. Have compassion when you are working on these new things. This is also a great opportunity to encourage what we've talked about recently on this channel, which is incorporating joy and play and creativity and curiosity. This is going to boost your motivation. It's going to give you a chance to explore something new and interesting and novel. So with neuroplasticity, anything new is going to help to form those new neural connections and frameworks. And we're going to be less likely to get stuck in old negative thought patterns or blocks that we may have. And it's a good opportunity to try something completely out of the ordinary for you and give yourself an opportunity to reevaluate what that might look like. So we can even have a visualization that might go along with this. We could find a nice, quiet, comfortable place, close our eyes, and envision yourself trying the new activity, enjoying it, feeling motivated, having the energy and the strength, being pain-free, or being able to cope with any symptoms that come up and still enjoy this new activity at the level we're at now. And allow yourself to really feel those positive emotions of that new experience. And we can come up with some affirmations like, I'm capable of trying new things, I enjoy exploring new activities. So if you aren't familiar with the idea of pacing or spoon theory, we might want to have a little conversation about that. So as part of healing, we might have to shift our understanding of where we've conditioned ourselves to kind of hang out in our ability level. And a lot of this is going to come down to maybe some basic analogies I'll start with. This one actually I did hear about when I did DNRS years ago, and I've heard about it in my motivational psychology classes that I've taken. So the example would be the flea in a bucket kind of analogy. So if you put a flea, fleas can normally jump, I think like 30 centimeters, I think was the number. But if you place them in a jar with a lid, they're going to jump and hit the lid repeatedly. And over time, they become conditioned to learn to jump just below the height of that lid to avoid it. And even if you take the lid off or remove them from the jar, they're only going to jump to the height of that now removed lid because they're conditioned to think they can't do more. And so this is where neuroplasticity would come in. Once we've learned a limit that we have had for a set number of time, we need to give ourselves permission to learn the neuroplasticity to relearn new behaviors, new actions. We also could think about elephants, right? I think we've all heard about if baby elephants are tied to a stake with a rope, they can't get free. And so as they get older, even though they could break free if they wanted to, they don't think they can, so they don't even try. So these limiting beliefs that hold us back can be formed when dealing with chronic pain or chronic illness for a long time. So we have to recognize and identify limiting beliefs and reflect on where they came from. And the other idea here is spoon theory, right? And so with spoon theory, we have this idea that with chronic pain or illness, we're only given a certain energy level in a day. I like to use the analogy, which is similar to like your internal battery. When you look at your phone and it shows how many bars of battery you have for the day, and they slowly kind of go away however much you use your phone or whatever. That's similar to spoon theory for ourselves. You're given a certain number of spoons based on your symptoms of the day, whatever illness or pain conditioning you have. And maybe for the average person in general with good health, they're given like 50 spoons for the day. And if you have certain chronic pain or health conditions, you might be starting the day with 25 or less, depending on a flare-up, things like that. Part of brain retraining, I think, is understanding that gradually over time as we heal, we have been conditioned to think we only have this height of jump, that we only have this many spoons, this much of a battery charge, and that can become a self-limiting belief, even if we're doing work that is opening up new neural pathways, reducing inflammation, improving our functioning. So we have to start thinking of ways to challenge these beliefs that we have about ourselves. And a lot of this is through pacing and gradual exposure. So slowly begin to expose yourself to different situations to try to push a little bit past a prior limit and notice if that feels okay for you. Give positive reinforcement. Celebrate every time you give this a try. Even if there's a small victory, that's a success. We're going to celebrate that. And if it doesn't quite feel right, it's still something that we're learning about ourselves as we heal. We're always learning and growing. And this is part of what we're doing on this journey. So we know with pacing, this is the practice of managing your activity levels to avoid overdoing it and making symptoms worse. And with spoon theory, we're describing our limited energy reserves that we have to manage to be able to get through a day. We're working here on shifting our relationship with these beliefs. So one example we could use is to track our energy levels as they are now rather than basing it off of past experience. We listen to our body that day, and rather than assuming we're only going to be able to do so much based on how we have been in the past, we give ourselves an opportunity to just see where we are at right now and rest when we need to. We also want to work on balancing periods of activity and periods of rest, and we're going to schedule regular rest periods throughout our day and use those as a chance to recharge and check in. We also need to work on that it's okay that our beliefs are changing, it's okay that our decisions are changing, and just being mindful. Before we commit to an activity, we want to consider how that would have affected us in the past and open up our mind that it might affect us a little bit differently now as we're healing our limbic system, as we're calming down our nervous system. We might have a little bit more resilience or energy to do these things. It's okay if we do, it's okay if we don't. We're also opening up that we might be trying new experiences that we've never tried before, and we don't know how many spoons that will take or how to pace it. It might feel a little bit scary to us because we might be stuck in a very specific way of living that felt safe. Part of healing our limbic system is knowing that we can push those limits and we don't have to stay in a very constricted routine to be safe. We can be safe trying new things and opening up our boundaries and our horizons. We also want to use mindfulness and self-compassion. We want to understand and treat ourselves with kindness and compassion, knowing that we have had a lot of challenges, and this is why we've developed our current way of being, but that it doesn't have to stay that way, especially as we grow and change. So here are some counseling tools that we can use to hold space for our different beliefs about ourselves as we manage different issues and work through different healing strategies. From acceptance and commitment therapy, we want to acknowledge our thoughts and feelings, recognize and accept where we are, and don't have any judgment. We want to incorporate mindfulness to be present and observe just where we are right here and now. We don't want to obsess over where we might be or where we've been, and we want to stay focused right as where we are in the present. When it comes to cognitive diffusion, we want to distance ourselves from unhelpful thoughts. So we want to try to reduce this impact of negative or catastrophizing thinking. We want to look at our thoughts as if they're just leaves floating down the stream or clouds passing by. They don't control us. They don't control our reality. And we might want to label the negative thoughts. Instead of letting it take over your emotions, just label it as a thought. Instead of saying, I'm failing at this, just say, I'm having this thought that I'm failing. Or instead of saying, oh, this is horrible, I'm making myself sicker, or I'm so sick I can't do this, say, I'm having a thought, maybe based on my past reality, that I can't do this, but maybe I could give it another try. We also want to clarify our core values. Reflect on what really matters to you. Why are you on this healing journey? What are the things you want to be able to do or try? And this might give us a different sense of motivation if we're facing challenges. And make sure that all of the actions we're trying to do aren't just because someone's telling us we should do them, but because they align with the values that we're trying to create for our future. And then we're going to have committed action. We are going to consistently take action, even small steps, to achieve these goals. The brain retraining tools are going to be much the same that we've been using. Neuroplasticity, positive affirmations, positive self-talk. We want to reinforce new empowering beliefs and repeat these daily to help rewire our brain. And we want to visualize ourselves successfully doing these new activities and strengthening neural pathways with the positive outcomes we want to see. When we incorporate new activities that bring us joy and accomplishment, we create this positive reinforcement loop. It improves our mood, and it's also going to improve our social connections and building our network, which is going to help with polyvagal theory. It's going to help strengthen our vagus nerve, which also helps with our limbic system healing over time. We want to allow for flexibility and self-compassion, and we want to have daily practices that slowly reinforce these behaviors over time. So I hope that by thinking about some of these things, it makes a little bit more sense about how we're going to take these practical steps and work on limiting beliefs and allow ourselves to try something new and to still utilize what we know about pacing, about spoon theory, but to open up our understanding of this as we heal. So if I used to wake up on a really bad flare-up and I only had 5 spoons for that day, that is totally okay. But as I've been doing my brain retraining and I notice that my energy is up most days, I'm staying up a little bit later because I have extra energy. I'm able to clean my house a little bit more. When my daughter wants me to go play with her, I was able to do that for a couple weeks straight. I might have to face this reality that I no longer just assume that I only have 5 spoons for my day. I need to challenge the negative thoughts that tell me that due to my old pacing or scaling behaviors, I can't even try to go on that hike. Because maybe I can. Maybe my limbic system has shifted, my healing has shifted to the point where I can do that. And if we get stuck with limiting beliefs and old habits and old ways of thinking, we might never allow ourselves the experimentation to see as we progress, as we heal, where we can go now. Now, there's nothing wrong if you try it and you're like, oh, I'm only up to 5.5 spoons, or I was able to try that and I didn't fail, but I didn't quite make it as far as I thought I would on that hike. You still tried. You pushed yourself to try something new. You formed a new neural pathway. Visualize the good things that occurred because of that. Give yourself credit. Celebrate the success. And over time, those new neural pathways will continue to strengthen, expand, and grow. And your reality is going to shift. The things you can do will shift. And your thought process about how you think about yourself and how you show up in your daily life will shift. I hope this helps anyone who is asking about pacing and spoon theory and brain retraining. I hope you have an amazing day full of healing and love.